don't need a high-end designer or a lot of money to get a luxe look. Be your own interior designer.
This is Affordable Interior Design, the podcast.
Here's your host, Betsy Helmuth.
This question comes from Winnipeg, Canada. Shout out to Cindy, who has written me and says, "Hi, Betsy. This is my second submission. I was so pleased with your advice that I couldn't wait for an opportunity to send another question. I just didn't know I could until I listened to your most recent podcast where you said it's okay to submit more than one question. Here I am. Yay!" Definitely, Cindy. Send in more than one question. I love questions. I love pictures that illustrate the questions, and our mailbag is a little bit low. We're good, but I love questions. So keep them coming. Send them to affordableinteriordesign.com/podcast. Once again, affordableinteriordesign.com/podcast. All right, your question. First of all, Betsy, I have to thank you for the best advice on a dark shiplap wall with rustic floors. Everything was too brown. It was too dark. Your advice was to whitewash it the same color as the rest of our walls, and I love the idea. We have renters in our home until summer 2022, but it feels like such an accomplishment to have that decision made for me. You're welcome, Cindy. That's what I do. Next for my question. This is our very small galley kitchen. The dimensions are 9 feet by 2 wide by 18 by 2 long. Unfortunately, changing the flooring will not be an option at this time. My thoughts are to change the lower cabinet fronts to match the top, as all the cabinets and drawers are in excellent condition. What do you think? All right, so Cindy, you have a lot of questions, so I'm going to take them one by one. And folks, if you're not on our YouTube channel, if you're not in the show notes, I suggest that you get over there for this one because there's so many questions in Cindy's email that it's going to be hard for me to illustrate everything. Let me do my best, but I think the visual references are super helpful for this question. So you have kind of dark brown chocolate cabinetry on the bottom. It has like a striation or sort of a faux wood grain so that it almost looks like zebra wood, but it's not shiny. It's a matte dark brown color on the bottom with silver handles. On the top, you have white or off-white cabinetry, but it's got crown molding that is that same dark wood color from the lowers. So the crown is not just above the cabinetry, it's also below the cabinetry, which is kind of unusual. It's not something I see a lot. I wonder if it's concealing maybe a light source or something under the cabinets. I don't know, but it looks visually awkward, and I would remove it if it's only decorative because it's not working for me. Okay, and then you have stainless steel appliances throughout, and you have a black sink. You asked, should you change the lower front cabinets to match? Well, here's my problem with that. When you open the cabinets, what tone is it inside? If it is brown inside, then I think it will look a little bit funky to have white fronts. I don't know, I'm open, but it's not really bothering me that the uppers are different in color from the lowers. In fact, when I do have a two-tone kitchen, I really like the lowers to be the darker color and the uppers to be the lighter color because, of course, we're familiar with gravity and it brings things down. So darker feels better at the bottom. I'm fine with this being two-tone. The thing that I think would solve some problems is to pop off that pesky crown at the bottom or that trim and pop off, the crown at the top. Those two pieces are, again, that dark brown. So it's making this white cabinetry look like it has this artificial outline, almost like a cartoon or something. And it's just not good. In fact, as I scroll through these pictures, it's almost all I can see. The other thing I can see is that you have handles or pulls on the bottom cabinets for the most part, and you have knobs on the upper cabinets. I think it would make a huge visual difference to have pulls on the uppers as well as the lowers. I would eliminate all knobs. I do not like these knobs, and I would have it all be handles. In fact, if I'm looking closely at these knobs, there's a reason I particularly don't like them. So let me share this with you because maybe it will spare others some pain. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. I really, really, really hate square, rectilinear, anything that's not a circle knobs. The reason I hate anything that's not a circle knobs is because you can always tell when it's slightly off. As you're pulling these cabinets open, as you're shutting them, these rectilinear or square knobs can easily get turned. And it looks so bad when they're not perfectly up and down. It makes it look messy and dated and poorly done when that may not be the case at all. Now, in this case, you're going to eliminate knobs altogether. But if you at home are contemplating getting knobs, don't get any knobs that aren't round. And knobs are not the classiest look. I think pulls are much more sophisticated, and I would do pulls throughout this kitchen to give it an elevated look on the cheap. Just use the same pulls that are on the bottom, just buy some more of them and drill an extra hole to accommodate them. And I think that is going to be a major upgrade. Let's go to your next question. You write, what should I do with the crown molding? Well, you know how I feel about that. Then you also ask, I'm looking for advice on the countertops, backsplash, and hardware. Now, if you're going to be changing out the countertops, backsplash, and hardware, well, I mean, it's like you're practically getting a new kitchen. I think that the countertops are pretty innocuous. Like nothing's going wrong there for me. They're dark and they kind of blend in nicely with the darker cabinetry. I think they're fine. I would leave well enough alone. I think the backsplash, which is very thin, it appears to be like a glass tile, very thin, extra long, small rectangles. It appears to be a glass mosaic tile, maybe with metallic pieces mixed in, maybe not. But that type of tile is very trendy. And that trend is now over, Cindy, which you may know, and which may be why you're asking me about this. But one very quick and relatively easy way to elevate a kitchen is to add a different backsplash, to swap this out, to take this tile off and put a new tile that can give it a totally new look. I would consider doing something that's a color, because you don't want to do anything white with white uppers, because one of them is going to look not white, right? White subway tile on a white cabinet. One of them is going to be more yellow. One of them is going to be more blue than the other. And it's going to make it look off. In fact, I was just looking at this dream home, like seriously a dream home in New Jersey. And they had just done a very extensive renovation and they had made everything white. Oh my God. It's so not my vibe. Now, I can make anything work. So I already had a whole plan just from the pictures. I'd already designed it. And I put in a lot of colorful wallpaper, a lot of colorful art to break up all that white. Because when I was there, white walls, white vanity cabinet, white tiles, that's the bathroom. Then in the kitchen, white cabinetry, white countertops, white waterfall going all the way down to the white pickled floors. I was like, oh my gosh, this place is so white. But the problem is nothing looked white. Even the stove was white. Yeah, like the entire stove was white. It was a really cool stove, but with everything else being white, first of all, it looked cream instead of white. And then the elongated white subway tiles looked kind of blue in comparison to the white lacquer cabinetry. It was just like, what were people thinking? Like white on white on white, unless it's the exact same shade of white. And good luck with that, because even if it is when you install it, over time, cabinets tend to change slightly in color with the sun. Like as the sun kind of impacts the cabinet and the paint, it can easily turn creamy. And come on, people, make some choices. White on white is not a choice. White is the absence of color. White on white is the absence of choice. Whoa, you can quote me on that. Okay, anyway, so don't do white, but you could really add some personality and flair with a more interesting color backsplash. Let's see, what's your next question? Do I have suggestions for lighting over the kitchen sink? Well, of course I do. I always do. But the problem is, unless it's some kind of pendant that's coming down from the ceiling, which may be hard to do if you don't have electric in that ceiling, I might leave well enough alone. I might just put a blind in the window over the sink and call it a day. Let's see what else. You asked me, my sink is black granite. I'm not sure about keeping this. I'm not sure either. It does not look good. All your appliances are stainless steel. Your countertop is sort of a version of black with some modeling to it. So that means that your countertop looks less black in comparison to this truly matte black sink. I would swap out the sink ASAP for a stainless steel sink that would better incorporate the hardware as well as the appliances and just make it feel more fresh and cohesive. You go on to say, I've attached a panoramic photo, in front of our windows. The window closest to the kitchen has the table in front of it. The window is 4.5 feet wide by 27 inches from the floor. There are 12 inches from the outside kitchen cabinet to the window. This is the space between the kitchen and the open concept dining area. We'll be moving the table in front of the patio doors when we move in, which will leave at least 5.5 feet of empty space. What should I do with this space? Should I add a bar height breakfast bar in front of the window? The lake view is amazing. Should I add a low profile table in front and decorate it with plants? I would suggest any other ideas or suggestions. Okay, let's look at it. I think it's going to look weird for you to put some kind of freestanding pub table, freestanding high island there, because it's just going to look like another piece of rectilinear furniture near the table in front of the patio doors. Also, if you wanted to, you could do that with like a peninsula effect, right? But that involves redoing the cabinetry or adding more cabinets, which may not match depending on how long these have been there because they may have faded. And then, of course, redoing the entire countertops, which, I think are totally fine. What I might consider is, the living area right now, and there's like a big sectional right next to the patio doors, like maybe 2 to 3 feet away from the patio doors. There's a really large L-shaped sectional, and one of the arms kind of separates the patio door from the living space. I think having a table there might feel a little bit tight. Is this your only dining table? If this is your only dining table, I might center it between the edge of the patio window and the edge of that lake view window that's 27 inches off of the kitchen counter. I'd put a nice big rug. I'd have that elongated table with chairs at the head and foot and chairs around the side. And I think that's the better way to do it so that you're not obstructing the patio doors. You're not using a teeny tiny table next to a massive sectional. And you're really getting a much more gracious eating area without putting a little Band-Aid in the middle. This little weird island table, high top thing that's not going to coordinate with the kitchen. And sure, there's room for stools and to push back, but you have seating with the table right behind it. Sometimes I think that's awkward, right? To have stools right next to a table because you can sit at either place. They're both seats. They're back to back. You have to have room to push them both out without hitting each other. So you need to give a lot of room. And by the time you give that much room, is this dining table practically touching this gigantic sectional? There's a lot to think about, Cindy, but I hope I've given you good food for thought. Get it? Get it with my pun, food for thought, because you're in a kitchen area, dining area? Okay. And also because it's Thanksgiving. So food for thought for Cindy. And I would be remiss if I didn't end this Thanksgiving episode by giving thanks. So thank you so much. A big thank you to Aton and the Embassy who wrote our theme song. A shout out to Catherine Heller who owns the podcast shop and is our editor extraordinaire. We also want to thank Ginny Sunasan and her team at the Savvy Podcast Agency for their help with our social, our YouTube channel, and so much more. We also want to thank Uploft, which is our parent company who supports this podcast. And lastly, we owe a huge debt of gratitude to you. Thank you so much for tuning in and for all your support.